I ain't the kind to wear a tie, button up from 9 to 5. I tried that life but said goodbye. I'm not always polite, but I get the job done. Who says that work can never be fun? I'm simply unprofessional. Simply unprofessional. Yeah. Yeah. Unprofessional.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Simply Unprofessional. I'm your host, Webby. Joining me tonight, we got Devin.
Hey everybody, it's me, Devin. How are you doing?
And we got Rob.
Hey everybody, it's Rob.
Okay, so put some thought into this. And a couple weeks ago now, Devin was unavailable for SU, and I decided because it was one of those days where I woke up and I felt like the decline off the bat of my mental health. Like I knew it was going to be a rough and a bad day. So I recorded an SU fairly early in the morning, and Rob was still asleep at the time. And I wanted to get it done and out of the way because I didn't want to have to, I didn't know what kind of, state of mind I'd be in later on that afternoon or whatever. Well, that particular episode was about tips for DMs. Whether you're a new DM to Dungeons and Dragons, or even if you're, a seasoned DM, these are just it was top 10 tricks and tips that you should, think about as a DM. So I wanted to kind of do the off side of that same coin. And I figured today's going to be a little D&D centric, but we're going to be talking about things that players can think about, or tips for players, whether they're new or even seasoned players. Probably mostly for new players. And we're going to go through this list, and we're going to kind of see if any of these resonate with say, you guys. But first, we're going to talk a little bit, because like I said, this would be for new players, and neither one of you are new players. But let's talk a little bit about maybe your guys' first characters, or your guys' first experience, if you remember it, sitting down at a table to play a tabletop role-playing game. What was going through your head? If you were nervous, if you had a blast going right through, right off the bat, and it just kind of came naturally to you. Things that maybe you found hard at first, but kind of grew on you.
Okay.
Tilly, that's enough out of you. We're not talking to you. We don't care about your first time playing tabletop role-playing games. So, Devin, do you remember your first time sitting down at a table?
Yes, actually I do. My first time involving with D&D in general, my first time was it was a sleepover. I want to say it was like 4th or 5th grade. My friend Leo and his brother Vlad, much older brother Vlad, introduced me to D&D. And in classic Devin fashion, they explained it over the night. And before we really got a chance to play, because it was like a one night thing, and they were a bunch of new people who never played it before, explained it to me. And I sat down, and I spent probably 3 hours making a character and learning the rules. And my first character was a monk.
Okay.
In classic Devin fashion.
And what edition did you say this was?
I believe it was 3.5.
3.5.
I believe. No, it might have been. It might have been 2. Because let me see. When did 3.5 come out? That's a good question. I'll tell you.
Well, while you're looking for that,
that's 7 or 8.
Were you nervous at all, or were you pretty laid back because it was just mainly you and some friends, or?
If it was 3rd edition, it was third edition was very new because third edition came out in 2000. So I would have been 8. I think I was in maybe 4th grade. So I was probably like maybe 2003, 2004, maybe right around there. So yeah. I wasn't nervous. Then my first actual like tables because we never actually got to play because it was that night, and then it was kind of hard to get everybody back together again to play. So we made characters, and I was really the only one that was like interested, like really interested out of the group to like learn it. And I didn't actually play like on a regular basis until middle school. Maybe like my last year of middle school, I sat on a table that was with a bunch of my friends, and his dad ran us a campaign.
Okay. Now, were you
Yeah.
nervous when you actually got to sit down and play and role play and stuff? Did any aspect of that ever feel like? Were you nervous about any of it? Were you unsure about any of it? Like, I know some
I was
people they
nervous.
sit down and for like their first time role playing, like sometimes a lot of people feel uneasy with the RP aspect of some games like these.
Right. Not exactly, because like everybody that was in the group, at least in my case, like I knew fairly well. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we were all very comfortable with each other. So for us, it was a little bit of a different scenario. You know, we were all pretty comfortable. It was just a pretty jokey atmosphere. So it was very par for the course as far as what you call it goes. As far
Okay.
as, you know, atmosphere and game play.
All right.
It was a pretty laid back scenario.
Now, what about you, Rob? Do you remember your first time sitting down at a table playing?
I mean, if you're counting like D&D or complete pen and paper RPGs, it's a little different because when I first started playing, basically, I have and I still have a bunch of the advanced D&D, which is basically second edition modules, and I used to just read through them, and I would try to get my friends to play, but like all of them were terrible about using their imaginations, and they would get bored. So basically, I would just create characters, and then read through the module, and that would be it. Like I wouldn't play by myself because I was like, "There's no point. I know it's going to happen." So I tried to get them to play several times. They were like, "No." So eventually, like my first real like with other people playing was board games like Hero Quest and Dragon Strike. But I don't know if you don't count those. My first actual game was 4th edition, and I joined a group that had been listening to Dungeons and Randomness podcast, and they were like, "Hey," they put out a thing on like the forums, "Hey, we're going to start a game if anyone wants to join." And I was like, "You know what? Why not?" So again, it was over the internet, so I didn't actually sit down at a table with people, but it was the first time I played like an RPG where you actually like role played and stuff. And I mean, in the beginning, I was a little nervous because I didn't really know any of these people. Like they were all strangers, and I didn't know how they were going to react to my character. And right away, like they all kind of were going like morally gray, and I was like, I don't like this. So I was like, why would like I started speaking up almost right away, even though I was uncomfortable because I don't want this to go down like become a bad guy path. Because one of the characters was a goblin who was like kind of trying to become the leader of the group, and he was like very not caring, like he was more leaning towards like being a bad guy kind of thing. But so eventually, like there was like in character arguments and stuff, and eventually we decided to like, and we convinced him to like take the side of the people against the evil dictator and stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, fine, no," because I talked to him after, and I'm like, "Were you like upset that I took like changed the direction of the story?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "What happened?" He's like, is my character happy about it?" Eh, but he can figure out ways to be happy about it. I was like, okay. But things so that like basically even our first session, like it pushed me into role playing right away, even though I was kind of like uncomfortable, and I'm like, I don't know that I'm gonna do this. But then I was like, no, this needs to change direction immediately, or I'm gonna drop out.
Rob's always playing the morally righteous person.
Hey, Icheb is not morally righteous. Everybody else, though, yes.
I just need to like design it. I just need to like design a campaign that like Rob thinks is going to be like all good to go. But like
We're
on the
all
side
like
of good.
really evil
He's-
fucking
no,
people.
no. He's on the side of good, but like for whatever reason, every time he does a good deed, like he would just quit the game though. So like I know he would. I know like he wouldn't do it. Like, every time he quits the game, like an animal or something got injured, he'd be like, "Fuck." Like, but he would just quit the game. So like I know it wouldn't really work.
Yeah, eventually, yes. I always end up like, because even video games, like when I try to do like the evil or renegade playthrough, like I abandon it halfway through. I'm like, I can't do this. It's too mean. I'm done.
I look at like it's too mean, and like half the time it's like it's really not even that mean.
Yeah, and also, just because a group is morally gray does not innately make them bad.
Mm.
If they were
That's-
bad, there would be no gray.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't say that we weren't going morally gray, though. We were going bad.
well, you said that the party was mostly morally gray, and you were not okay with that.
Well, yeah, because most of them, well, like I said, because the one guy was basically like, oh, yeah, let's take the side of the bad, and the rest of them were like morally gray, so they were like, okay, let's take the bad, and I was like, no.
Oh man.
No. What?
I think Rob, in real life, Rob would be a paladin.
Or a druid.
And not even one of the cool, like, Oath of
I feel like he would
Vengeance
be-
paladins.
Honestly, no, I feel like Rob would be like if we were playing with like variants or something. I feel like Rob would be like an urban druid. He'd be like a druid. He'd be like, yeah, fuck all that nature shit.
Yeah,
Like,
but
you
even
can, like,
druids are
recruit a
neutral. Rob's just
They
always...
are-
Rob wants to be that shining star in the sky to guide people to good deeds.
And I'm like the guy behind him that's like gagging every time he tries.
I would be a lawful good bard, is what I would be.
I
Oh,
literally am
God.
incapable of playing a lawful good character.
I
Like,
would.
am
I
incapable
actually
of
want
doing
to
it.
see Rob play, and I think it would be easiest for him a lawful good character.
Like, and I say
Because
this,
it
like,
is
John's
harder
gonna
than
look
you
at this-
think.
John's. it
No,
really
I
is.
know,
For-
that's
for
why I
a
never-
lawful good character correctly, especially if you're playing like second edition or third edition, where it really matters, especially as a paladin.
Yeah, well, that's why
Like-
I usually go neutral good, because I don't think I could play lawful good either, because then you'd have to be like, no, sorry, I need to turn in my...
I mean-
Basically betray your companions if they do something bad. It's
I
like,
mean,
nah, I
I
can't do that
usually
neither.
go neutral good myself. Neutral good is usually my defaulted alignment system.
Yeah, I bounce between neutral good and chaotic good. Generally.
Yeah, neutral good is my usual suspect when it comes to like my playing.
Your
Like,
play
I'm
style.
usually yes, because I feel like I can represent myself the best with that,
Right.
while also like playing a good character in a party.
Right.
I actually hate playing chaotic characters. As weird as it is,
you hate
because-
chaos in general.
No, I not yes and no. Like I actually really hate playing chaotic characters because I'm just in my natural self. I'm a very logical person. Like
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I'm very logical.
I can
So
get
it's
that.
always hard for me to like sit there and be like, well, all right, let you know. But it's weird because I'm also just like, fuck it. Like like if there's not a real good alignment to like describe me. Because like if I was gonna like play myself, my day-to-day mentality is just like fuck it, let the cards fall where they fall, and then I'll just plan around what I'm dealt.
Yeah.
That's kind of like how I am. But like that's not really chaos. That's not really technically like
Now, okay, side tangent. I'm gonna ask both of you to pick one class per thing that I ask. Okay,
yes.
we'll start with Rob. If you had to pick a D&D class that was, do I want to add like the lawful things into it? Yeah, let's go. Let's go. No, just if you had to pick a class that was just good, all around. what class comes to mind?
Cleric.
Okay,
No, actually, for me, I would paladin for me.
paladin. So cleric and
Yes.
paladin. Okay.
Those are the ones that come to good,
Uh,
flat out.
Rob, if you had to pick one that came to mind for neutral, what would it be?
Probably bard.
Okay, Devin,
Monk.
monk. All right. Evil, Rob.
Warlock.
Fair. Devin.
I mean, yeah. Usually, I would say, weird as it sounds, I'm going warlock or wizard with it on that one.
Okay. Lawful, Rob.
Paladin.
Okay. Devin.
Lawful.
Yep.
Can I double pick or no?
Yeah, you
Like,
can.
can I pick one
Yeah.
I already picked? I
Yeah.
would say paladin for sure.
Okay. We already did neutral, so that kind of covers just true neutral. Chaotic.
Rogue.
Okay. Devin.
Sorcerer.
Sorcerer. All right. Yeah, them wild magics. All right, I was curious. All right, getting back on topic. Also, something that Rob said. I mean, just because you're playing, over the internet with friends or with a group, I mean that I would still consider that a table. Yeah, you're sitting down and you're playing at a tabletop of some fashion.
A virtual tabletop.
A
or
virtual tabletop.
or
So-
whatever.
The first actual table game I ever played. RPG wise, like D&D wise, was at Gen Con with you guys.
Well, was that the year that I was there or the year that I wasn't?
I don't think we played D&D the year that you weren't there. We played like lots of board games the first year. I don't think we played D&D though. So yeah, it would have been the year you were there.
Gotcha.
I know I went 2 years. I think I went. You went 2 years, right, Webby, or no?
No, I've only been once.
He only went one.
Oh, I'm only been 1 year. I don't think I went the first time. Either.
All right. So.
No, I did. Because I'm pretty sure I slept in. I slept in the room with. Yeah, because Rob and Rebecca picked me up from the train station, and then I think I stayed with them the first year. So I did go the first year.
Oh yeah, that's right. You stayed with them in the weird train hotel.
Yes.
But yeah, and then the first year I stayed with Chris, and then the second year you and I.
And
had a
you
room, I think.
stayed at in the ghetto motel with
Yeah.
where you were afraid to go out after dark.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I was like, I'm sure it's not that bad. And then Chris was like, no, it was that bad. I was like, oh shit.
There's people doing drugs in the hallway. I'm just like, oh my god.
Oh, we're talking about like the Firebird Motel. Shout out.
Hey.
Not a sponsor.
How
all
old
right.
do you want to be?
So I'm gonna start listing off some of these tips for players, and kind of keep yourself in the mindset of being a new player or how you felt when you were a new player, and essentially tell me what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna name off what the tip is. What they suggest. These are top 10, and I have a couple honorable mention kind of things, and I want to know if you guys agree with it and why, or if you disagree and why. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So the number 10, I don't think they're in any particular order, but starting at number 10, tips for new players, or sometimes veteran players. Like I said, I still do some of these. Keep the player's handbook nearby. Essentially, if you need to look up anything about your race, your class, spells, things like that, it's a lot easier nowadays with having online tools. But I think having a player's handbook somewhere nearby, accessible to the players, is a good thing. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, not even it doesn't even have to be a physical copy. It could be a digital copy or whatever. A way to look stuff up. That way, you don't have to rely on the DM all the time to look stuff up for you.
Right.
But like I wouldn't anymore because I know a lot just offhand, and you can Google a lot now. With fourth edition, that was definitely necessary because they copyrighted everything, so you couldn't find anything online. But now, because fifth edition, they have that share thing, the license share or whatever. You can find all sorts of stuff just by Googling, which is very helpful.
Yeah, but see, also like Googling doesn't always solve the issue either. Like it does. Like we Google a lot of stuff when we're playing games. Whether you're DMing and I'm helping to Google looking up a rule or whatever that maybe we haven't thought of or we haven't really come across the situation for. But then like there's times and not saying that it was bad, but like there's times where like you you guys used Google. I don't remember what game it was now that we were playing, but you guys used Google and there was some sort of spell or something that you were like, yeah, that's cool, that's fine. And I was like, what the fuck spell is this? This doesn't exist.
Oh, the consecrate spell?
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. And it's because you guys Googled it, and there are lists and stuff out there of people who have made homebrewed spells and put them up and whatnot that aren't quote unquote official D&D stuff, but we do use a lot of homebrew stuff anyway. But I think that's the one instance that I can think of where Google would kind of fail you in a situation is.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it did say that it was. I just didn't notice that it said it was homebrew material. Like, I didn't look at it, and because I thought it was, I like in my brain for some other reason, I thought it was a spell, and I just like looked it up, and I'm like, yep, there it is. But the page I looked at, it did say at the top that it was like third party homebrew material, and I was because after Apple pointed it out, I was like, oh, right, yeah, it does say that.
No. Devin, what are your thoughts on having a book handy? Do you still do this, or do you not do it much anymore? Or
not as much as I used to, only because I usually am pretty quick with having references up on the computer and stuff.
yeah,
So I don't usually worry too much about it anymore. But yeah, like I 100% agree. Like, yeah, you need to have something handy.
so if we were all sitting at my kitchen table, it was me, you, Rob, and
I'm more likely to have my
new
phone
and
out
a new
than I am a
person.
book, just because I'm more likely to have my phone out or something than a book, just because it's so hard to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
Like,
they have
What
changed
page is
things
this?
a
And then,
lot.
like, if you don't know exactly like what page it's on when you're referencing it, you're kind of like you're scrambling. It takes too long. And I used to be the book guy. I used to be the reference guy for
Yeah.
my group. And we used to run 4 of us running 2 characters each, so we had 8 characters, and I would be the one to reference everything.
Yeah.
So,
And it is hard because
safe to
they've
say that shit
changed
got
how
old.
things work, and they've added a bunch of spells that wouldn't be found in the player's handbook anymore.
Yes.
Things like that. But like if we were sitting down at my kitchen table with a new person playing D&D, you both would encourage them to pull up D&D Beyond or something else on their phone to be able to have like a quick reference sort of
Yes.
Yeah,
thing.
or have a
Or
physical
I
book
would
if they
encourage
have no
them
other.
to, or encourage them to, if they're brand new, I would definitely encourage them to read through their characters starting off early. To kind of at least if you my philosophy going into this would be on any new kind of a new character situation or any new player situation is, as a more experienced character or player, I can help you. I will help you. I can help you as much as I can, but to make things as fast as possible, if you at least know your character,
Yeah.
kind of understand what you can do and what you can't do, or at least like your role. Even if you don't know like your abilities exactly, but know your role. Because like I'm not gonna lie, I don't know every single ability and every single subclass does. But if you know your role in the party and you know your character to a degree, whether that be through both an RP standpoint and a mechanic standpoint, I can fill in the blanks. That's the easiest. That's always super easy to do. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So number 9. Okay, so I'm really curious as to what you guys think on this. I have a feeling like I know, but coming at this from a perspective of a fellow player at the table, I have heard people argue both sides of this, either yay or nay. I have a definitive opinion myself from a DM perspective, but number 9 is ask questions. If you're not sure what a spell description means, if you can't remember what certain things stand for, like AC or DC or ACDC, if you don't know what it means to be behind the various types of cover, ask. Just, plain up. If you have to, pause the game for a couple seconds and ask the question. What do you guys think? Let's start with Rob.
I mean, yeah. Otherwise, how are you going to learn stuff? Plus, you could make mistakes and not realize it, and then everyone like that close down the game, and because the DM has to be like, wait, what?
Right. Now, what about you, Devin?
What was the question one more time? I heard it, but I was coughing.
Asking questions at the table.
In regards to what?
As a player. Like, whether you're a new player, an experienced player, do you think it's okay? Do you think it's okay to kind of pause the game and ask questions about stuff?
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And like as far as like combat goes, I know me as a DM, like with a newer player, I'm okay with like somebody help like pre-planning out, like, hey, before you do this, like let's look at the board and like plan out the best way to do this. I'm okay with that as with a new player. Now, like, I mean, generally I'm okay with that overall, but it also depends on the game we're in and the kind of game we're playing. If we're playing like a game where it's a bunch of vets, you know what I mean? Hey, maybe don't stop the game every 5 seconds to think over a turn. You guys should be doing that in between your turns. But if it becomes a problem, if that's the thing, right? But other than that, like with a new player, no, ask away.
Yeah. See, from a DM's perspective, I will say, I encourage people, if you don't know and you have a question, speak up. I will say
Also,
I have heard the opposite end of this coin, kind of like what Devin just brought up. When you have people who are playing at a table who are experienced or have played these games for years, and they don't know what AC is, and they keep asking, or they keep having to ask, hey, what is AC, or where is this on the sheet, or whatever, that can get a little daunting. Yeah. But
or if you have a player, sorry, go ahead. I'll finish.
No, I mean that's pretty much what I had. And it's just there is a line in the sand essentially where certain things should be known by a certain time.
Yes, or if you have a person who's not like a regular player, they don't play all the time. They'll pick up in a group here and there, but they express interest constantly to join and to play, so they will do that. They'll play. And that's fine. And I've encountered multiple people like this through a lot of groups I've been in, and they'll express interest to play. And it's like the first couple of times, that's not a problem. But when it's like the 5th or 6th time you've been in a group and you've expressed interest to play, and you've wanted to play, and I feel like at a certain point you should come in. If you're really interested in playing, you should come in. Like, where to find stuff at this point, or people who have the resources to help you out. Right. You should be able to come in with a baseline of knowledge where every time you join a group, I shouldn't have to re-explain the whole game to you.
Right. What were you going to say, Rob?
I was going to say also for new players, if you ask the DM a question and they say, you can certainly try, that means don't do it.
Not always.
Not
always.
Uh-huh. No, that doesn't mean don't do it. That just means...
That means good luck, have fun.
That means good luck. That means that, yeah, you can try this. I don't know if it's going to work in your favor exactly, but you can try it.
Now, Rob, do you think that there's
a hear their tones? That means don't try it.
Yeah. All I'm saying is I'm glad that we don't use cams on some of the games that I run for you guys, because like when you guys will say what you're thinking about doing, sometimes my facial expressions will just give away like, nah, you probably shouldn't do this. um but Rob, do you think that there is a point, where a player shouldn't need to ask like repetitive questions anymore? Like, is there that line in the sand where even as a DM or another player at the table, you should just be like, yo, listen, if you really are interested in playing this, you need to read. You need to do some, let it sink in.
Well, it depends. Like if they're asking the same question during this session, like over and over, then yeah, definitely either that or they have some kind of problem where they can't retain information. But like if it's a different session, like say they were like, oh, where do I find my AC? And you're like, right here. They're like, oh, okay. And then the next session is like a couple weeks later. Like it's like maybe they've forgotten by that time, especially if they're newer. Um, like I know, like sometimes people on John's podcasts have that issue where they're like, where was this again? Because we haven't played in like 4 weeks.
Right. No, I get that. I mean, obviously there are like circumstances, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying like if you will play in a game or like let's say like I used to be in a group that played modules, so we'd play a module and then we'd make new characters and play another module. And so if you're in like module 1 and 2 and then you tap out for 3 and 4 and then you join back in for 5, but like module 1 and 2 was like 6 months of playing. I feel like at a certain point, even if you kind of forgot, when you join in, hey guys, I want to join in. I want to jump back in, but I kind of forgot some stuff. Just real quick, run me down. This, and this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I feel like the tone in which you answer questions can help people start to remember because they're like, oh, they're getting mad. Like the initiative. It's like, oh, I rolled initiative, but I'm not in the tracker. Did you select your token first? Oh, right.
Right.
So yeah, after a while, be like, I guess you don't get a turn.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, Devin.
I will add you. I will add you to the track. I will. Nobody say anything. You can add your when you figure out how to add yourself to the tracker. You would take a turn. Until then, I am considering you surprised.
I will say I've had to do this one time, and it might have been to Austin. I don't remember now. But combat already gets bogged down. Combat D&D is one of those where, a 6-second combat or like a 1-minute combat takes fucking 5 hours to play out. But like I would have a player who it would come up to their turn and they would sit there dwelling on what to do or trying to figure out what to do, and like I'm talking like minutes and minutes and minutes of just thinking of what they could do. And eventually it got to the point where when it came around to their turn, and yet again they were just like trying to figure out what to do or what the best course of action was or what spell to use or whatever. Again, things that, like Devin said, you should be thinking about after your turn, during everybody else's turn, what you would like to do next. I get it. Things happen throughout other people's turns that will change and alter the course of your actions, but you should still have a rough idea of what you want to do. You shouldn't have to spend literally 5 to 10 minutes figuring it out before taking your turn. And when it would come up to their turn again, and I'd see them start thinking or I'd hear them start trying to debate what to do, I would start counting down from 10. And then once I got to 0, I was like, okay, we're moving on to the next person. You couldn't figure out what you were doing. You stood there for that turn. That might have been a little harsh on me, but it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know how else to tell this person that they need to hurry up on their turn. Um, All right, number 8. It kind of goes with the one previous to this, but communicating and speaking up. This isn't just in regards to asking questions, but like as a party, when you're sitting there trying to figure out um, what what actions to take in what situations and what choices to make. Just how to distract the guard or how to bust into this building. Um, the party, especially if you're a new player, don't shell up. Offer an opinion if you have one. If you feel like it's a dumb opinion, say it anyway. You never know. It might be the best course of action. You know, um, but I definitely think speaking up and being heard is important for new players. Otherwise, you're just going to have a very quiet, passive player on your hands that just kind of goes with the flow. And I mean, whenever I encounter this, I always feel bad as a DM because I feel like they're not having fun. Even if they are, I feel like they're not because they're not talking as much or they're not involving their characters as much as the rest of the party because they're new.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? We'll start with Rob again. We're going to go Rob Devin the whole time.
Cool. But I mean, yeah. I mean, partly though, like sometimes people don't want to speak up because they feel like I said, like in the beginning of the first one that I did, I didn't want to speak up, but then I did because I was like, I don't like the way this is going, so I'm going to suggest another course of action. And then we ended up going my way. So like it can happen, definitely. But like I get that sometimes it's like I'm not good at this, I'm not used to it. I'm going to kind of keep quiet. I know Apple talked about at the beginning of when she first started, she had trouble. She didn't want to speak up much. But I mean, that's definitely something you can get over. Like I noticed last night when we were playing John's game that James was very quiet for most of it. Like I tried to like involve him and ask questions and stuff, but I think it's just because he's new and he's not used to it.
Right. Yeah,
But
and I
yeah,
mean
I mean,
there is a level of nerves involved as a new player, but I mean if you don't speak up, then I don't think then you'll ever really break out of that habit.
mhm. Well, I mean, the GM can help too. Like I know both of us sometimes, like if someone's being quiet, we're like, "What? Like blah blah blah. What are you doing
Yeah.
while this is going on?" Kind of thing.
Devin, what are your thoughts on speaking up at the table as a player?
Absolutely. Speak up. About I think anything. Whether it be in-game or out-of-game issues. Like if you're having an out-of-game issue with somebody, I think you're usually better off, or you don't like the way somebody did something in the game. If you're not comfortable approaching them yourself, maybe approach the DM about it. Obviously, it's a little hard if you're playing. You may feel like a little out of place, I guess, playing in a group where like you're the outside man. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're the outside man, and like everybody else knows everybody else knows each other. You're kind of the outside man. I get stepping up would be like a little weird in that situation, but you're better off like getting it off your chest. And if they're any type of decent people, it shouldn't really be a conflict. It should just be like, hey, I don't, I didn't like when you did X, Y, and Z. In game, you can approach this in game or out of game. If you and a character don't, you and a character, because I see this happening a lot where like in character issues, like issues between two characters in the game, but people who invest a lot of themselves into their characters will then spill over into the real world and
Right.
vice versa. So I think it's always a good thing if you're able to articulate yourself in a way of just making your point and saying like, hey, I feel this is X, Y, and Z is wrong, and this is why. Maybe we can do something about it. And yeah. Or if you see, or as DM, I feel too, if you think, if it comes down to an issue where you're noticing two players are constantly butting heads back and forth, as a DM, I think it's your right to just step in and go, if it's causing problems at the table, step in and go, hey, you know what? From now on, any group decision is going to be just put it to a vote, round table vote.
Right.
Kind of that kind of a deal. I mean, it kind of sucks in a situation though if there's three people.
I mean, that's
because
fair.
then
Yeah.
you always have the one person going one way, the other person going the other way, and then that person in the middle is going to be like, "Well, fuck."
Yep. He's always going to be the deciding vote.
Yeah. So I mean, if that works better. You have like 4 or 5 people, and it could, and the other 2 people aren't as strongly opinionated one way or the other. It works out.
So what you're telling me, Devin, is we need to find somebody to DM a game for us. Me and you are always constantly going to be fighting, saying you want to do A, I want to do B, and then we're going to make Rob pick. We're going to make Rob be the tie-breaking vote.
Yes.
That would also make Rob be like, I'm done playing.
The problem with adding more people to that thing, though, because like if there's only 3 of you, like if 2 of you want to go one way, the third person's probably going to be like, okay, fine, we'll do it your way. But if you have like 5 or 6 and like they're both evenly split, they're going to be like, let's split the party. It's like, oh god.
Yeah. All right, number 7 is going to be the opposite of speaking up. Don't take over. Some players, again, we've discussed, they might have trouble speaking up. It might be nervousness. It might be, whatever. It's also not uncommon for some newcomers to try to become essentially the center of attention at the table. D&D is meant to be, it's a team game. You're working with the other players in the party. I never really truly understood the people who were like, I'm going to cause problems and I'm not going to want to do anything and be a team player. It's like, then why are you at the table? Oh, well, my character's the one that doesn't want to be a team player. Then why is your character here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm misunderstanding something in this, okay? Because you're supposed to want to be doing this. It's not always it's one of your things as a player to find a reason why your player would want to be adventuring or want to be with this group of individuals. If your character doesn't want to be, retire your character. See you later. Go find another table. But it is a team game, and every party member deserves a voice, and it's not right to sit there and drown out other people. Now, as a DM, I try to address this by, I try to give everybody at the table some sort of equal time where it's like, okay, we'll move over to the next person. What are you doing during this period of time? This, that, and the other thing. As players, how would you address this if you sat down at a table and somebody was constantly just becoming the center of attention? Would you just let them? Would you try to, somehow in character resolve it? Now I'm actually curious to your guys' thoughts on this one as players.
I put my answer in the chat in the form of a meme.
Hi, I'd like a wake-up call. Your PC isn't the main character of the story. It's a team adventure. Oh, well, yeah, that's a wake-up call. I get it now. I didn't get it at first. So are you saying that you would just give that meme to somebody? You would print this out and hand it to somebody?
Yeah.
Well, all right.
If they were being a jerk, yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily them being a jerk either. If they're just like, okay, I won't lie. Now, this wasn't my fault. I don't feel like it was anyway. But like, going back to like the Fate game, John kind of made my character the center of attention.
Yeah.
I didn't like that, but I went with it. And I had told John, I was like, listen, if you're having trouble, if you ever have trouble getting other people to speak up when you ask them what they're doing or whatever, if you come back to me, I'll do something. And then it was just he constantly came back to me with it. And then eventually I was just like, I'm just gonna get drunk and watch fucking Cheers, whatever. I just don't care anymore. But like as a player, like have you ever run into this issue where you feel like somebody is trying to like be in the spotlight more often than the rest of the party, or do you think it's pretty balanced in most of the games that you guys play?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I do for the most part. Like I do for the most part. I think for I have like two opinions on this. Like if somebody came to me, if a player came to me and said, "Hey, I don't like the fact that this player is just taking over all the sessions," but if I felt like he wasn't the player, he or she wasn't like just intentionally doing it, but you guys were just like the other people were letting it happen. I don't think the wake up call is for the player who's taking over, it's for the rest of the party. Like you have an issue with this player being front and center, or this player being the one who's seemingly the leader of the party and just kind of guiding the players around. But anytime I present a problem, I get crickets except for them. So if it's something that just kind of happens organically, I'm not so inclined to step in. If it's something where I see like this player is forcing himself into other people's stories and forcing themselves into every narrative to be the front and center, that's a different kind of scenario.
Yeah.
If it's not like a writing issue where I'm like I'm writing the story or I'm like leading up the story to do that to like put this person front and center. If I'm writing it where anybody can at any point in time can have this up for grabs and they're just not doing it. I feel, I don't want to say I don't feel sympathy, but like it's hard, if I feel like I'm not the one doing it, because I feel like I'm punishing somebody who's just playing their character. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
Like I feel like at a certain point, I'm just punishing that player for playing their character, and it's not really their fault they're standing out, but nobody else is trying to stand out or doing anything. They're just playing their character and doing what they do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I have the like split for it for me. If that kind of answers the question.
Yeah.
But
Rab.
Yeah. I mean, I myself try not to do it. Sometimes it's a struggle because it's like, oh, I want to be involved in this, but it's like, no, you know what? My character would not be involved in this. It's like, we'll sit silently. Also, like trying sometimes things that I want to be involved in that I kind of probably should. Sometimes I end up missing just because I'm trying to be polite and not interrupt people.
Yeah.
And then like the moment goes by, I'm just like, fine, whatever.
Well, that's where the speaking up thing comes in play, Rob.
I know, but that's like I don't. It's hard to find a spot because like you feel like you're just like because people are still just talking and it's like like ba 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 ba. But yeah, I mean, don't involve yourself in things that your character shouldn't be involved in. Like it's okay. Like sometimes I know that our groups sometimes like they're like, oh, can I hear this? And it's like, yeah, just because they want to be like doing background reactions and not to be like involved, which is fine. It's like, I want to be like making faces in the back, like, oh my gosh, blah blah blah. But it's like as long as you're not like getting into the conversation where you really shouldn't be, things like that are fine. But yeah, if it doesn't really involve you, you should just let the people do what they're going to do, and then if they want to tell you about it and involve you, they can.
I will say I am a bad player in some cases. Prestidigiteo comes to mind. Pebbles pretty much has a voice concerning all things. generally, if it's something that might cause problems, he gets shushed and thrown into a hood. But yeah, I mean, I I do it almost subconsciously at this point because I get into that PC mindset, right? I get into the character,
Mhm,
and Pebbles is the type of character where he would just be vocal about stuff.
mhm,
He doesn't really have a filter on his mouth when it comes to 90% of the people he talks to. So, but if it ever does it becomes an issue, like I said, people usually shush me and then throw me into a hood, and I just hang out in the hood for a while.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
all right, number 6. This is a big one, and I don't think either of you do this anymore because you might have when you were first players, but that's going to be an interesting part of this. I want to know if you guys did this when you first started playing D&D versus now. But number 6 is take notes.
mhm.
And would you recommend new players do this? Start with Rob.
I would recommend new players do it. Yes. um, I used to not take notes per se because we used to record our sessions when I first started playing with you guys, so I could just listen. I would listen back, and then like I knew everything that happened because I listened to it. I was a fan of our games, so I would listen to it, and I'd be able to remember what happened that way. Lately, though, well, we don't do that anymore for the most part. So the only notes I tend to take are ones that specifically involve my character, because like if other things happen that he doesn't really know about or isn't involved in, I feel like he wouldn't really remember or pay attention. So by not taking notes, it's more like realistic that I don't remember those things because he wouldn't remember those things. The only thing that I took a lot of notes recently was our vamp game because my character had that thing where he could recall specific stuff for up to a certain amount of time. So I would write everything down because I knew that he would remember it specifically.
Gotcha.
But I still do make important notes, like sometimes people's names if I'm going to talk about them later, or like certain things. Like I wrote down what I wanted to happen, what happened at the Wildspire, and what I wanted to happen, and the people's names that we came across. Like the guy I put in charge, I definitely wrote down his name because I knew I wouldn't remember because I didn't make it. So it's
I
like,
sure
yeah,
as hell
okay.
don't remember.
I don't remember either, but it's on writer's sheet because
Good.
I wrote it down. But yeah, things like that. Like I make notes specifically for my characters and what they would know. John's game, I write more notes because I know no one else probably does, and even John forgets stuff sometimes. So I take a lot of notes for his games, but that's it.
What about you, Devin? Did you start off D&D taking notes, and do you still take notes?
I do and I don't. Depends. As I'm getting older, so I start to forget things more. Like small things, where before I didn't really have that problem. Um, so yes, but yeah, but also no. I've gotten. I used to when I first started off. I used to take notes about everything. Now I take notes about like more stuff that's more like pertinent notes for me.
Okay, so a lot like Rob, things that would
Yeah,
be important to your character or
my character or just
names.
important to me in general. Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's see what we got going on here. You know, so
And would
that
you
kind of
recommend that new players take notes?
yeah, absolutely. Um, and only for the sole reason of it just keeps people. It if you especially if you're one of those people who are like I don't like asking for help or I don't want to. I mean, take notes. You know,
Yeah.
if every single week you're sitting here, take notes.
This could also be useful for that person who, like we discussed earlier, who constantly has to stop the game to ask questions.
Take notes.
Write down, keep notes, and write down in your notebook. Like I have a notebook for each of the games that I run as a DM. I don't write every single thing down, And sometimes there's weeks where we'll go and we'll play one of the games, and I'll DM a game. I don't even pull out the notebook. I'll write down maybe a couple notes on a sticky note, then I'll stick the sticky note in that notebook afterwards. But certain key things to that you could write down as a player. Health potions. 2d4 plus 2. Just write that down somewhere. You can find charts and stuff like that online, but like if you have a physical notebook, put it on the front cover or the back cover of your notebook so you know where it is, and whenever you need to take the various degrees of health potions, you can just quick reference your notebook since it's in front of you and be like, okay, I'm going to drink this health potion and I gain this much health back. I will say, as a DM, I love the fact that in every game that I DM, there is at least somebody who takes extremely detailed notes. It's very handy, it's very helpful, and I appreciate it because to me it seems like they are more, not saying more invested in the story than like you guys, but it gives you that sense of pride, like this person likes this game enough that they literally write down everything. you know Number 5, expect the unexpected. Veteran tabletop role-playing game players and game masters know that it's incredibly rare for anything to go as planned. Players might circumvent the DM's masterfully engineered fight with a wild gambit from a bard or rogue. On the other hand, someone's bad roll might result in in that plan going down in literal flames.
Mm-hmm.
You can go into any scenario in D&D hoping that it turns out one way, but I would always temper your expectations, because sometimes all it takes is one bad roll and the whole plan gets thrown out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Would you guys agree with that? That's a good rule for a new player to understand.
Yes. Sometimes before the plan even starts, it gets thrown out the window because somebody's like, I didn't like that plan, I'm just going to do something different.
I can't possibly think of an example of that happening, Rob.
Uh-huh.
Ever.
Right.
Devin, your thoughts on that as a general rule for new players? Expecting the unexpected. Did we lose Devin?
Maybe.
Sorry, I was still muted.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I think definitely you should expect the unexpected, and just don't make a plan that you're not prepared to see fail.
True. I will agree with that. That's gonna bring us into our number 4 spot, which this one I get it, but especially as a new player, it can be kind of discerning or like discomforting, but there's a good point to be made here. Embrace every roll, even your critical failures. It's natural instinct anytime you roll a 1 to wince or to feel like you got punched in the gut or just to feel a little down. But no matter how dire things look, it's still sometimes possible to turn that situation into a humorous event, or even possibly use it to help another player shine. Turn that critical failure into somebody else's, cinematic moment, so to speak. What do you guys think about that, as far as like embracing your role and not getting too discouraged when you roll 1s?
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes we can turn it funny. Like like we've rolled terrible on like looking for things, and you're like, oh, I walk into a brick wall or something. Like you can like not turn it around, but like make it more interesting.
Right.
In combat, it's a little harder because it's just like, ah, crap, I missed, and it's not like you can describe how you missed if you want to.
Right.
But like all other roles, like there's usually some interesting thing you can have and like have your character have happen. Like say you're trying to like with the or like something funny about it can happen later. Like in our um Iron not Iron Wolves. I don't know why I keep calling them the Iron Wolves. The Night Wolves game. The when we were looking for the camp, and he's like, "I can't find anything. We're just gonna camp in this patch of grass by the side of the road." And then I looked later and found a bunch of like caves right on the other side of the road. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna sleep in the cave.
Yep. Devin, what about you? What's your opinion on embracing all roles, including the bad ones?
Yeah, I mean, you should. Sometimes I've had the most fun playing like the quirky, shitty like role play character, like not role play, like the role player as like not the role player as in like the role player of like in the art of role playing, like playing a character, but like the role player being like, I'm in this group specifically for this one purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've had a lot of fun like making quirky characters that just do that. So I mean, I embrace it all in my opinion.
Another example, I was in a game where we didn't have a rogue, but I was a bard. So I had a thieves kit and stuff. So they were like having me unlock doors, and I was like, I should probably check these for traps. So I kept checking stuff for traps, and I would roll so horrible every time trying to check for traps. I'd be like, nope, no traps on this door. Go ahead and open it. Like every time, I would just be like, nope, no traps. There were traps.
There were traps. All right, we're gonna kind of push through the next couple because I'd like to. We're already a little over an hour now. Number 3. This is a common one. It was also on the list that I did for tips for dungeon masters, and I think it's something that every player needs to understand. Veteran players understand it. New players need to make sure that they understand this going in, knowing that the rules are more like guidelines.
Yep. That's one of my favorite memes is I'm a book, not a cop.
That's right. Every DM, a DM can decide to give a player advantage or disadvantage if it makes sense. Also, what was it? I think it was you, Rob. Maybe it was Apple. I don't remember. I gave somebody, without even saying anything to them, I gave them inspiration. I just checked it off on their sheet.
It was Apple.
And they were like, "What's this?" I was like, "You got inspiration." They're like, "When?" It's like, "Do you want me to take it away?" And she's like, "No, no, no." I was like, "Then just take it. Just know that you did something that I felt deserved inspiration." The thing is, to new players, and the DM has final say. Okay, if they do not like a rule in the book, they can change it. Generally speaking, if I don't like a rule in the book, I will change it, but I will let people know what I'm changing and why. If everybody kind of gets up in arms about it, I might reconsider just keeping it the way it is. But generally speaking, again, all the changes that I do make in the game, I feel like I make in favor of the players or for fun.
One of the big ones is the bonus action spell thing.
Yeah, because that's a change that I've made, and it makes sense to me in my brain, and I think it makes for faster and more compelling combat. And if people are like, well, that gives the players too much power, not if they're fighting people who can also cast spells, because the enemies can do it too. So it's just something you got to learn with. I will say, unless there's anything specific you want to say, Devin, I feel like that is a, the rules being more like guidelines is a pretty self-explanatory one that I think all players should understand.
Absolutely.
Number 2 for new players, stick with it. If you have an interest, if you have a passion to learn D&D, don't get discouraged if your first session doesn't go perfectly. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be things that you need to learn. There's going to be, no matter how close you are to the people at the table, there's going to be arguments. There's going to be, discussions being had. And it, especially to new players, it can seem overwhelming the first time that you jump into a game, but that's okay. That's what everybody else at the table, DM and players included, are there for. They are there to help you. That kind of ties in with all the other things that we've talked about, asking questions, taking the time out of, your own personal time, not even D&D time, to read up on your characters, to read up on the rules, to read up on various things, to familiarize yourself with things. Everyone's going to have, questions. I've been DMing for years and I've been playing for years. I still have to look stuff up. No one's expected to know all the things in D&D. So yeah, stick with it. If you quit, then, you're missing out. D&D is a phenomenal game. Whoa. Hold on. My Discord booted me out.
Oh,
Am I back?
yep.
Okay, you are too. I don't know why, but my Discord just decided to restart. And it's still loading, but I can still hear you guys through Discord now, so it's still recording this way. What did you just say though, Rob?
That's good advice for first-time DMs too. Like, if your first session doesn't go perfectly, don't get so discouraged that.
What, did I leave again? Yep, sure did. Sorry, we're having technical difficulties with Discord apparently right now. This is... No, I heard some of it. Sorry about this, folks. It's just me talking to you for the moment. Let's see. Exit. No, not exit OBS. I want to keep OBS running. I want to exit Discord. Not sure exactly what's happening here. Everything says it's working. Well, we're having technical issues right at the tail end of it. Wonder if I could get it on my phone, but I don't think you'd be able to hear them coming through my phone, even if I did. Hey, this is going to be real compelling for all you people. That's all I got to say. All you guys listening at home, take one of my earphones off. No, I sure am not. Whatever it is on my computer, it's not working. Oh, maybe now it is?
You sound better.
Hold on.
3 times while you were gone.
Let me leave with my phone. Oh, it booted me on my phone. All right. Let me make sure all you guys are... Okay, Devin, can you say something?
Hey, something.
Rob, can you say something?
Hey, hello.
All right. So I did hear part of what you were saying before it booted me a second time about this is good advice for DMs as well.
Yeah,
Not to
just
get
And then, he,
discouraged if
and
the
then he was
session
talking
one
shit
doesn't.
about me too, and I was like, "Yo, you taking shots at me with that?"
All right. Moving on to rule number 1. This is the last rule. I think this is a broad spectrum rule for all players and dungeon masters. And as a dungeon master, I feel like it's my rule number 1 to make sure that my players are experiencing, and that's have fun. If you're not going to have fun playing a game, why are you playing the game? And if you aren't having fun, don't play the game. You know, you gotta, it's an escape from reality. You know, and it's a game that you're supposed to be enjoying with your friends or whoever you're playing with. So that's all it is.
Yep.
Agreed?
Agreed. If you
All right.
don't have fun with the game, cut it out of your life. I'm looking at you, Dead by Daylight.
I still don't get you.
What? You just said I don't have fun playing Dead by Daylight anymore, so I don't play it.
Get good, noob.
Whatever.
All right. Devin, agreed. Have fun. Don't play a game that you're going to get, upset over constantly.
Absolutely.
All right. So that was our list. I think I only had like 1 or 2 honorable mentions, but I don't remember what they are now. Avoid metagaming. If I had to tell somebody, like if you know something out of character, but your character wouldn't know it, don't bring it up. You know,
It's hard sometimes.
it
But also
is.
an example of that is what I was talking about, like how I rolled low and I was like, nope, there's no traps. Like I know I rolled low, so there still could be traps, but my character was confident there were none because they checked.
Right.
And we still just walked through the door, even though me and the party knew that it's possible it could still be trapped. Like we weren't like, nah, we're gonna recheck this one. It's like, nope, he said there's no traps, let's go.
And then the other honorable mention is something that Devin brought up earlier, and that's just look over your character class. Look over your race, your class. Know your character. You know, if you're gonna write something on your character sheet, put it somewhere where you'll remember where it is that you can look at it. You know, some martial classes get extra attack at 5th level. Put that somewhere so you remember, hey, when you're in combat, you get to swing an additional time. You know, little things like that. Well, with that being said, we're a little over an hour. We're going to close out here. Do we have a science corner this week, Rob?
Yep. A bunch of like smaller things. Number one, I looked up the birth of the star thing. So the Hubble, the Hubble telescope captured the birth of a star. Well, it's still being born apparently. It's in the Sol Nebula, but basically the clouds that were surrounding it, that because basically stars are born out of space dust, but a lot of the dust has cleared away for the telescope to be able to actually capture the star being created. So it's cool. Second, the world has reached 8 billion people and still going up. And the last one was that the Artemis 1 has finally been launched. It was delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, but it has now been launched, and the Artemis 3 will be the return of humans to the moon. So, and fun fact, they called it the Artemis because the original moon landings were called the Apollo missions, and Artemis is Apollo's twin sister.
All right. Do we have life advice with Devin?
We do. If you ever find yourself failing a field sobriety test, you just get up and you look at that cop and you say, look, officer, it's not about how many times you fall down, but it's about how many times you get back up. There you go.
Well, I don't know how well that will help you in that scenario, but it is good life advice. All right. Well, where can people find you on the internet, Devin?
You guys can find me at DMP_Pookie. You can find me on Twitch at Mr. D3. And as always, you can find me on eBay, Failing Field Sobriety Test.
Failing field sobriety tests. All right. Where can people find you, Rob?
You can find me on Twitter at Confessor_X and on Twitch at twitch.tv/ConfessorX.
And you guys can follow me on Twitter at JaxForestWalker, all one word, on Twitch at DMWebby, and on eBay at Giving Devin Field Sobriety Tests just for funsies. Thank you everybody for listening, and fuck Booster Gold.
Fuck Booster Jold.
Fuck Booster Gold.
Oh, the hard G on that one, huh?
Yeah.
Jolt, like Gerald. What if his first name really was Gerald? It's like Gerald Jolt.
I would slap somebody if they Gerald Jold.
You know what? If we raise $1 million for our Christmas stream this year, I not only will marry Devin, but we will adopt a baby and name him Booster. That's how confident I am in us not raising that much money.